The movie begins in a secluded laboratory owned by a biotech firm called Synsect, known for creating sophisticated, human-like artificial intelligence. In this hidden facility, scientists have spent years working on a secret project dubbed L9. Their latest creation is Morgan, a fourth-generation AI who, though only 5 years old, appears as a young woman. Initially, the lab staff used to take Morgan on walks in the nearby woods. However, the Synsect leadership eventually banned these unsanctioned outings, confining Morgan to a glass-enclosed room. One day, Dr. Kathy Grief visits Morgan for lunch. While Kathy prepares the meal, Morgan, lost in thought, examines her hands. Kathy brings up how she has been trying to convince the administration to allow outdoor visits again, but has received no favorable response. Suddenly, Morgan becomes violent. She sweeps the plates off the table, jumps up, and attacks Kathy with a sharp object. Fortunately, 2 doctors intervene quickly and sedate her. The incident is caught on camera and sent to Synsect headquarters. To assess the situation, the company dispatches risk management specialist Lee Weathers to the lab. Upon arrival, she is greeted by Ted Brenner, the project manager. Ted offers to show her around, but Lee declines and proceeds to her room, where Dr. Amy Minzer, the project's behavioral expert, is waiting. They briefly discuss their work and personalities. Amy is warm and open, while Lee is serious and strictly professional. Their talk ends abruptly. Later, Lee heads to the kitchen and meets Skip Franzgicki, the lab's chef and the only team member without a science degree. Ted then takes Lee to visit Kathy, who is recovering from the attack. Despite her injuries, Kathy tells Lee that Morgan was once kind and cheerful, but her demeanor changed after being locked in the glass room. Next, Lee speaks with Dr. Simon Ziegler, the lead geneticist behind Project L9. He explains how they use synthetic DNA and nanotechnology, though previous versions of the AI suffered from physical and psychological issues. Morgan, however, is a breakthrough. She matured at an extraordinary pace, walking and speaking within a month. Despite being an AI, Simon says Morgan is a hybrid being capable of thought and emotion. She appeared physically mature by her first birthday. Simon then shows Lee the footage of the attack, calling it a one-time incident. He believes the project is still on track and sees the event as a learning experience. Eventually, Lee visits Morgan in person. For safety reasons, she observes from outside the glass room. Morgan appears calm, courteous, and even apologetic for what happened with Kathy, insisting it wasn't intentional. Later, Morgan sits quietly, reminiscing about time spent in the woods with Amy, who she clearly trusts and loves like a sister rather than a scientist. That evening, Lee has dinner with the rest of the team, meeting the married researchers Dr. Darren and Dr. Brenda Finch, as well as Dr. Louis Chong, the head of Project L9 and the person Morgan sees as her mother. Lee clarifies to the team that her main responsibility is to evaluate risks in relation to the company's profitability. Much to the group's discomfort, she refers to Morgan as a product rather than a sentient being. She brings up a prior case in Helsinki, where earlier AI prototypes killed 21 scientists. Simon interjects, asserting that Morgan is far more advanced and unlike those earlier models. That evening, Lee and Skip share drinks and have a casual conversation. Skip discusses the interpersonal dynamics within the team, revealing that he and Amy were romantically involved at one point, though he emphasizes that he's currently single. Slightly intoxicated, Skip makes an awkward pass at Lee by kissing her and blurts out, "I swear I'm not a virgin," before quickly apologizing. Embarrassed, they say a stiff goodnight. Meanwhile, Amy visits Morgan, disabling the room's security cameras beforehand. She reassures Morgan about the upcoming psychological evaluation and tells her to stay true to who she is. They touch their hands to opposite sides of the glass, symbolizing a bond that feels like sisterly affection. To calm Morgan's nerves, Amy promises to one day take her to Lake Navarre, a peaceful place they've talked about before. This memory triggers a flashback for Morgan. She and Amy walking in the woods, discovering a deer fatally impaled on a branch. Morgan gently touches the animal, then swiftly ends its suffering by snapping its neck. The next day, the team prepares for Morgan's psychological evaluation, which will be conducted by Dr. Ben Shapiro. Though protocol requires that he assess her from outside the glass, Ben decides a face-to-face interaction will be more effective and enters the room despite concerns. Sitting across from Morgan, he's surprised to find that she already knows his name and purpose. Ben begins by asking about Morgan's emotional state. She admits she feels troubled because of what happened with Kathy, revealing her capacity for remorse. As the session continues, Ben probes deeper, questioning her feelings about living in isolation. Though Morgan insists she's fine, he presses further, pointing out that the lab staff are not truly her friends if they kept her locked up. He deliberately escalates the situation, pushing her emotionally to observe her response. When he mentions that he might recommend her termination, Morgan finally breaks down, shedding a tear. In a sudden outburst, Morgan throws Ben against the wall and attacks him, biting into his throat and tearing flesh. The team rushes to respond, and Darren tries to sedate her, but Morgan uses Ben's body as a shield and knocks Darren down. Lee, watching everything unfold, attempts to intervene, but the power cuts out, allowing Morgan to escape the room. Lee quickly grabs a tranquilizer, hoping to stop Morgan before she gets too far. Outside, Morgan encounters Amy, who is anxiously waiting for the test results. The sight of Amy soothes her, but the moment is short-lived. Lee tranquilizes Morgan from behind. When Morgan regains consciousness, she's back in the lab. She immediately apologizes for her behavior. The team gathers to decide her fate. Dr. Lewis, the project head, is firm on terminating Morgan, while Simon pleads for one more chance. However, Lewis remains resolute, leading a heartbroken Simon to walk away. The rest of the team, visibly emotional, begins preparing for Morgan's termination. Morgan has become emotionally important to the team, having integrated into their daily lives. When faced with termination, she pleads with the scientists, even calling out to Dr. Lewis, whom she sees as a mother. Though visibly affected, Dr. Lewis apologizes and walks away, sealing her fate. Morgan is sedated and loses consciousness. Unable to go through with it, both Simon and Lewis leave the lab. Darren, assigned to administer the lethal injection, also backs out and leaves with his wife, Brenda. With the team abandoning the plan, Lee takes it upon herself to end Project L9, but Ted intervenes. She strikes him and threatens him with a gun, but Amy shoots her with a sedative, rendering her unconscious. When Lee wakes, she finds herself imprisoned inside Morgan's containment cell, with Ted standing guard. She demands to be released before company executives arrive, but he ignores her. Meanwhile, Amy, Ted, Brenda, and Darren scramble to prepare Morgan's escape. But when Darren tries to wake her, chaos erupts. Morgan wakes in a darker, more violent state. She headbutts Darren, grabs the lethal syringe, and kills him. Ted tries to defend himself with a gun, but Morgan overpowers him and shoots him dead, all while Lee watches helplessly from inside the cell. Outside, Brenda loads up a vehicle and tells Skip to be ready. He's confused until he sees Morgan leading Amy out of the lab. Realizing something's wrong, he hurries back to find Lee. Brenda catches up to Amy and asks where Darren is, but Amy is too shocked to respond. Morgan then points a gun at Brenda from behind. Though Brenda tries to fight back, Morgan is too strong and kills her brutally. Fueled by rage, Morgan heads to the residential area and finds Kathy. Trying to remain calm, Kathy greets her warmly. "Hey babe, what are you doing?" But is savagely kicked to death. Meanwhile, Lee escapes through the ceiling vent, breaking out of the room via a glass sunroof. She finds Skip outside, who's horrified by everything. Unlike him, Lee is composed and tells him to arm himself, hinting that she's more than just a corporate investigator. Inside the quarters, Dr. Lewis records a video log of the catastrophe, but Morgan appears, gently kisses her forehead, and then shockingly kills her by suffocation, all of which is caught on video. Later, Lee arrives and finds Lewis's lifeless body hanging in a cabinet. While inspecting the area, Morgan attacks her. The two engage in a brutal back-and-forth fight, which ends with both of them crashing out a window and landing on a car below. Skip tries to stop Morgan, but she overpowers him, steals a car, and escapes with Amy. Determined, Lee gives chase. She eventually catches up, but Morgan causes her vehicle to crash into a tree. As Amy desperately pleads for her to stop, Morgan remains focused on her escape. Despite the crash, Lee survives with minor injuries. Skip arrives soon after, saying he knows where they're going. Meanwhile, Morgan brings Amy to Lake Navarre, a place she had long dreamed of visiting. She tells Amy she won't hurt her, but Amy remains cautious, secretly. Armed, upon seeing the lake, Morgan tears up, moved by the sense of freedom she's finally experiencing. For the first time, Lee takes matters in her own hands, arming herself with Skip's rifle and heading into the forest to confront Morgan directly. Wasting no time, she fires a warning shot into the air, alerting Morgan to her presence. Morgan, determined to end things once and for all, returns to the woods to face her. The two meet in a brutal showdown. They exchange powerful blows until Morgan gains the upper hand, shoving Lee against a tree where she's impaled on a branch, eerily mirroring the dear Morgan once killed out of mercy. Believing Lee is fatally wounded, Morgan walks away, leaving her to die. Morgan hurries back to the lake, hoping to escape with Amy. But in a dramatic twist, Lee reappears, alive with only minor injuries. She tackles Morgan into the water and holds her underwater until she drowns. Lee then takes Amy's pistol and, shockingly, shoots her in the head. Afterward, Lee limps back to the vehicle where Skip is waiting, only to shoot and kill him as well. eliminating the last remaining member of Project L9. In the aftermath, SynSect executive Jim Bryce speaks with other board members and officially declares Project L9 a failure. The film concludes with Lee sitting alone in a diner, calm and expressionless, as she quietly studies her own hands, similar in manner to Morgan. It becomes clear, Lee is also a bioengineered being, specifically created to carry out missions without emotion.